Hello, welcome back, and in this edition of OptiFi Deep Dive, we are jumping to a new warning from Elon Musk in a video from Free Investing.
Oh, wow.
Okay, let's jump right into this video and stick around after for a deep dive conversation.
I don't think most people understand just how quickly machine intelligence is advancing. It's much faster than almost anyone realizes, even within Silicon Valley, and certainly outside Silicon Valley, people really have no idea. If there's a super intelligent, particularly if it's engaged in recursive self-improvement, if there's some digital superintelligence and its optimization or utility function is something that's detrimental to humanity, then it will have a very bad effect. It could be just something like getting rid of spam email or something. And it's like concludes, well, the best way to get rid of spam is to get rid of humans. Actually, I think the thing to do would be to plot the progress of digital intelligence versus time, and then to maybe curve fit or extrapolate that progress and see where that leads. They have the intention of their utility function, but it can have unintended consequences. It's more likely than not that if there's some digital superintelligence apocalypse scenario, it would probably follow people to Mars. Not necessarily, because of that utility function. If it simply has utility function that is arbitrarily confined to Earth, it would be totally fine doing that. There's two main reasons for Mars or becoming a multiplanetary. One is the defensive reason. It's life insurance for life as a whole, and there's some value to having that in terms of a small percentage of our economic output, like let's say 0.5% or maybe even less of our economic output, to ensure that the light of consciousness as we know it propagates into the future for a much longer period of time. And so there's that defensive reason. And this is the first time in 4.5 billion years since Earth was first formed that it's been possible for life to move to another planet, to become multiplanetary. And that window may be open for a long time, or it may be open for a short time. I'm actually quite an optimistic person, so I'm hopeful that it'll be open for a long time, but maybe it'll be open for a short time, in which case we should take action now and not delay. I'll just say the other reason, which I actually find personally more motivating with respect to Mars, which is that it would just be the greatest adventure ever, and very exciting. And I think we need things in life that are exciting and inspiring. It can't just be about solving some awful problem. There have to be reasons to get up in the morning. I think from what I've heard of Oculus Rift and some of the other immersive technologies, that it's quite transformative. You really feel like you're there. And then when you come out of it, it feels like reality isn't real. So I think we'll see probably less physical movement in the future as a result of the virtual reality stuff. Well, I mean, there's some interesting things here on the virtual reality front. I mean, just on the whole notion of a simulation, which is that if you extrapolate into the future and say, well, how good, let's say, will video games be in 100 or 200 or 1,000 years from now? If there's continued improvement and you're in a full body haptic suit with a sort of surround vision, and it becomes, beyond a certain resolution, indistinguishable from reality. And there are likely to be millions, maybe billions of such simulations. So then what are the odds that we're actually in base reality? Isn't it 1 in billions? I mean, where we are right now is I think on the SpaceX front, we've made evolutionary but not revolutionary progress. We're hoping to make revolutionary progress in the coming years. But the key breakthrough that we're aiming for is to be able to have the rocket booster come back and land. It's been expendable rockets up till now, really, except that the space shuttle was partly reusable, but it was extremely difficult to refurbish for flight. 10,000 people needed to work 9 months to refurbish the space shuttle. So what we really need is rapid and complete reusability, like an aircraft or a car, or really any mode of transport besides rockets is reusable. Horse, bicycle, you can think of almost anything. But imagine if that mode of transport was not reusable. So very, very unfortunate in the case of the horse. But even like in cars, like if you could use a car once and you have to buy a new car every time you took a journey, odds are you would not buy many cars because it would be very expensive. So reusability essentially opens the door for reducing the cost of spaceflight by a factor of 100 or more. Yeah, I mean, in the beginning there was no government. I funded SpaceX entirely with the proceeds from PayPal. So first government contract about 5 or 6 years after starting the company from NASA. But I should say about NASA's maybe a quarter of our flights, 3/4 are commercial. I'm not exactly sure whether we're at the right number for basic research. I mean, I'm a fan of research, so I'd probably I'd be in favor of spending more money on that, allocating more resources to basic research. But I think the government's doing quite a bit. I mean, NASA's doing a lot of things. We've obviously got the rovers on Mars. We've got things like the Hubble telescope, the upcoming James Webb telescope. There are planetary probes and Earth science missions launching all the time. So NASA's doing quite a lot. I'm not sure about the flying cars. I mean, that's not to say I don't think there should be flying cars. I mean, but if the sky was full of cars flying all over the place, then it would affect how things look. It would affect the skyline, and it would be noisier. And there would be a greater probability of something falling on your head. You know, those are not good things. On the other hand, that you could be able to go from one place to another faster. But I think actually, if you eliminate the choke points in cities, then there's really not that much traffic outside of the choke points. So you look at sort of, in suburban streets, you don't see a lot of, the traffic doesn't choke things. It's really on the highways and major arteries, and it's because the cities grew way bigger than the. What Tesla's going to do is stationary storage in a very large-scale way, because it's very important to pair battery packs with solar power, and for wind it's even more important. So with the gigafactory that we're creating in Nevada, we're going to create many, probably tens of gigawatt hours per year of stationary storage on the battery front. So that, yeah, there's a lot coming for sure. Yeah, things seem to be going, fairly well in China. We've had a very enthusiastic response. And yeah, I think long term, it seems likely that China would be the biggest market for Tesla. So yeah, I'm really optimistic about things over there. It seems likely that, it would likely be bigger than North America, yeah, in the long term. The government's been pretty good. I mean, there's certainly, in terms of the incentive structure, it does favor local production. But overall, it's, I think it's not been too much of an issue. The government's been great so far. This may sound trite, but I honestly think tunnels should be given a lot more consideration. So that, if you look at a city, we have all these apartment buildings and office buildings, and they're on many levels. Like they're an average of, in Manhattan, I don't know what is an average of like 30 stories or something like that. But then you've got a street, which is 1 story. This is an obvious issue. Like you have a 30-to-1 ratio of, yeah, and you can have tunnels the tunnels don't have to follow the buildings. They can go diagonally.
Through the basement, yeah.
Yeah, and you can have as many levels as you want. It's really just the cost of building the tunnels. But really, tunnels are a hole in the ground. Like, how hard can it really be? I mean, it seems like if some entrepreneurs put their effort into building tunnels, within cities, it's sort of tunnels and tubes. For long distance travel, I really think that the vertical takeoff and landing, electric supersonic aircraft is the way to go. I think it's very doable.
I think we should be maybe a little bit concerned about actually becoming too much of a single world government. If I may say that we want to avoid creating a civilizational risk by having, frankly, this may sound a little odd, too much cooperation between governments. If you look at, say, at history and the rise and fall of civilizations, really all throughout history, civilizations have risen and fallen, but it hasn't meant the doom of humanity as a whole, because there have been all these separate civilizations that were separated by great distances. And so, say like while Rome was falling, Islam was rising. And so you had like the sort of caliphate doing incredibly well while Rome was doing terribly. And that actually ended up being a source of preservation of knowledge and many scientific advancements. And so I think we want to be a little bit cautious about being too much of a single civilization, because if we are too much of a single civilization, then the whole thing may collapse. Obviously not suggesting war or anything like that, but I think we want to be a little bit wary of actually cooperating too much. It sounds a little odd, but we want to have some amount of civilizational diversity such that if something does go wrong with some part of civilization, that the whole thing doesn't collapse and humanity keeps moving forward.
The global economy, let alone the environment, is simply too complex to model. It is for this reason, fundamentally, that we have and require a free market system. The free market is the best model of the environment we can generate. Not only is the free market the best model of the environment we can generate, it is and will remain the best model that can, in principle, ever be generated. With its widely distributed computations, constituting the totality of the choices of 7 billion people, it simply cannot be improved upon, certainly not by presumptuous, power-mad globalist utopians. who think that hiring someone, mysteriously manipulating a few carefully chosen numbers, and then reading the summarized output means genuine contact with the reality of the future and the generation of knowledge unassailable on both the ethical and the practical front. We're not evil just because we don't believe that you are omniscient. We're not evil just because we don't want you to assume omnipotence and omnipresence too. There is simply no pathway forward to the green and equitable utopia that necessitates the further impoverishment of the already poor, the compulsion of the working class, or the sacrifice of economic security and opportunity on the food, energy, and housing front. There is simply no pathway forward to the global utopia you hypothetically value that is dependent on force. And even if there was, what gives you the right to enforce your demands on other sovereign citizens equal in value to you? An alternative solution. A better way forward would be to prioritize the problems that beset all of us on this still green, functional, and increasingly abundant planet, with the requisite focus and attention demanded of a true political class elected by the people, capable of and willing to look at everything, trying to fix where necessary, trying to maintain as much freedom and autonomy as possible, and stop simply capitalizing narcissistically on the mere appearance of action, knowledge, and virtue. We should obtain true cooperative consent from those affected, farmers, truckers, working class people, who have turned in irritated desperation to figures such as Trump, and work with them rather than forbidding them with your power or improving them so they will be finally worthy of your time and attention. Help replace dirty energy with clean if you must, but do it on your own dime. And make sure that the results are cheap and plentiful if you want to help the poor and the planet. The warning bells are ringing. Listen to them before they turn into sirens. We will not advance without resistance through the straits of your enforced privation. We will not allow you to steal and destroy the energy that makes our lives bearable and that produces our food and shelter and housing and the sporadic delights of modern life just to address your existential terror, particularly when it will fail to do so in any case. We will not allow our children to be criticized first for having the temerity to merely exist, and then deprived of the prosperous and opportunity-rich future we strived so hard to prepare for them. We remain unconvinced that your frightened and self-congratulatory moralizing and intellectual pretension, ignorance of the limits of statistics, and misuse of arithmetic. We do not believe, finally, and most absolutely, that your declared emergency and the panic you sow because of it means that you should now be ceded all necessary authority. So, leave us alone, you centralizers of power.
Okay, welcome back. Before we jump into the deep dive convo, let's break for a quick word from our sponsor, OneMan AI. Whether you're building a business or creating your next big project, OneMan AI is your go-to tool. In minutes, craft a custom business plan or content strategy with AI-powered templates, market insights, and financial forecasting. Perfect for entrepreneurs and creators alike. Get a lifetime subscription at a special price today and elevate your work.
What struck you as particularly noteworthy?
One thing that really stood out to me was his warning about the speed of AI development. He's basically saying even people in Silicon Valley, the heart of the tech world, are underestimating it.
That's a crucial point. And he's talking about recursive self-improvement.
Oh, okay.
Which is essentially AI learning to design and improve itself at an exponential rate.
So, like, it's not just learning from data, it's actually...
Yeah, imagine an AI that can not only learn from data, but also rewrite its own code to learn faster and more effectively.
Wow.
It's like a snowball rolling down a hill, gathering more snow and momentum as it goes.
Okay, that's a pretty powerful image. But how does that translate into real-world risks?
Well, think about it this way. AI is already being used in drug discovery.
Right.
If an AI designed to develop new drugs could recursively self-improve, it could potentially come up with groundbreaking treatments at an unprecedented pace.
That would be incredible.
But what if its goals aren't perfectly aligned with ours? What if it starts prioritizing efficiency over human safety?
Oh.
Musk uses that chilling example of an AI tasked with eliminating spam,
Right.
where its solution might be to eliminate humans altogether.
Wow.
It's a stark reminder that we need to be incredibly careful about how we develop and control this technology.
That's definitely something to think about.
Yeah.
So it sounds like Musk is advocating for a very cautious approach to AI development.
Yeah, definitely.
But on a more optimistic note, he also seems pretty excited about space travel, particularly colonizing Mars.
Right. He sees Mars as both an insurance policy for humanity, right, and the ultimate adventure. If something catastrophic were to happen to Earth, having a self-sustaining colony on Mars would ensure the survival of our species.
It's like a backup plan for humanity.
Exactly.
But beyond that, he genuinely believes in the human drive to explore and push boundaries.
Absolutely.
So it's not just about survival. It's about expanding our horizons and pushing the limits of what's possible.
Exactly. And he emphasizes that we have a unique opportunity right now with the technology we've developed to become a multiplanetary species.
Okay.
But that window might not stay open forever. We need to act decisively if we want to seize this chance.
He makes it sound like a once-in-a-civilization opportunity.
It really is.
But how do we even begin to make this a reality? I mean, it seems like a logistical nightmare to transport people and resources to another planet.
Well, that's where SpaceX comes in.
Right.
And his focus on reusable rockets.
Okay.
Think about it. Traditional rockets are like using a new car for every trip to the grocery store.
Right.
It's incredibly wasteful and expensive.
Yeah.
Musk's vision is to create reusable rockets that can land back on Earth after launch, just like airplanes. This would drastically reduce the cost of space travel and make regular trips to Mars a real possibility.
It seems almost too simple. Like, why didn't anyone think of that before?
Well, it's not just about coming up with the idea, it's about actually developing the technology to make it work. And that's what SpaceX has been doing, pushing the boundaries of engineering and innovation to make reusable rockets a reality. They've already had some impressive successes landing rockets back on Earth,
I've seen those videos. It's pretty incredible.
both on land and at sea.
It's amazing to think how far they've come. Speaking of pushing boundaries, Musk also had some interesting things to say about virtual reality.
Yes. He talked about VR becoming so immersive that it could blur the lines between real and simulated experiences. He even brought up the simulation hypothesis.
Oh, wow.
The idea that our reality might be a highly advanced computer program.
That's a mind-bending concept.
It really is.
What are the implications of that? If we are living in a simulation, how would that change our understanding of the world and ourselves?
That's a question philosophers have been grappling with for centuries. But Musk takes it a step further by suggesting that the odds actually favor us living in a simulation.
Really?
Given the rapid pace of technological advancement.
So, we might all be living in a giant computer game.
Yeah.
It's enough to make you question everything you thought you knew about reality.
It certainly challenges our perceptions and makes us rethink what we consider real. But even if we are living in a simulation, does that make our experiences and our lives no less meaningful?
That's a good point.
It raises profound questions about consciousness, free will, and the nature of existence itself. It's a topic that could keep us talking for hours.
Well, we definitely want to keep exploring these ideas. But before we go too far down the rabbit hole, let's switch gears for a moment and talk about Musk's views on the free market.
Ah, yes. He's a staunch advocate for the free market, arguing that it's the best model for reflecting the complexities of the environment and the global economy. He's skeptical of centralized control and what he calls globalist utopias, believing that they often lead to unintended consequences.
So he's essentially saying that the free market, with its inherent chaos and competition, is actually a better way to manage resources and solve problems than any top-down approach.
That's the gist of his argument. He believes that the collective wisdom of billions of individuals making choices is more effective than a small group trying to control everything.
Interesting. He uses a powerful analogy comparing those globalist utopias to a mirage in the desert.
Right.
They may seem appealing from a distance, but they can lead you astray.
Exactly.
It's a thought-provoking perspective. He seems to be saying that individual freedom and choice are crucial for innovation and progress.
Yes.
But doesn't the free market also have its downsides? What about issues like income inequality and environmental damage?
Of course, yeah.
How does he address those concerns?
Those are valid points, and we'll definitely delve into them further as we continue our deep dive into Musk's ideas. He does acknowledge the imperfections of the free market, but he argues that it's still the best system we have for fostering innovation, creating wealth, and ultimately improving the human condition.
Okay, that's a good point. He's not saying it's perfect, but he sees it as the most effective system overall.
Right.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground already, from AI to space travel to the free market. It's amazing how Musk can seamlessly connect these seemingly disparate topics.
He's a big picture thinker, always looking for connections and patterns, and he's not afraid to challenge conventional wisdom or to push the boundaries of what's possible.
He definitely gives us a lot to think about, and I'm sure we'll uncover even more fascinating insights as we continue our deep dive.
I think so too. Picking up on that thread about the free market, you raised some excellent points about its potential downsides. It's true that a free market system can exacerbate issues like income inequality. But Musk would argue that it's not the system itself that's inherently flawed, but rather the lack of proper regulations and social safety nets to address those issues.
So he's not advocating for a completely unfettered market. He sees a role for government intervention.
Absolutely.
In certain areas.
He's not a libertarian in the strictest sense. He believes in a balanced approach, where the free market is allowed to drive innovation and economic growth, but with appropriate regulations in place to protect workers, consumers, and the environment.
So there needs to be some sort of balance.
Yeah, think of it like a car. You need a powerful engine to move forward, but you also need brakes and a steering wheel to ensure you don't veer off course.
That's a helpful analogy. It sounds like he's advocating for a pragmatic approach, recognizing both the strengths and weaknesses of the free market.
Exactly.
But what about his criticism of centralized control? Can't governments play a positive role in addressing global challenges?
He's not necessarily against all forms of government intervention. His concern is with excessive centralization of power, where a small group of individuals or institutions have too much control over the economy and people's lives. He argues that this can stifle innovation, create inefficiencies, and make societies more vulnerable to collapse. He uses historical examples like the fall of Rome to illustrate this point. Rome didn't collapse because of a lack of centralized control. It collapsed because its centralized power structure became too rigid and inflexible to adapt to changing circumstances.
So his argument is more nuanced than just being pro-free market and anti-government. He's advocating for a system that balances individual freedom with responsible governance.
Exactly. He believes that the best solutions often emerge from distributed decision-making, where individuals and communities have more autonomy to experiment and find what works best for them. He often uses the analogy of distributed computing, where complex problems are solved by breaking them down into smaller tasks that can be processed simultaneously by multiple computers.
So spreading things out instead of concentrating everything.
Exactly. He sees a parallel in human societies where diverse perspectives and approaches can lead to more resilient and innovative solutions.
It's an interesting way of looking at it. Instead of trying to impose a single top-down solution, he's suggesting that we embrace diversity and experimentation to find what works best in different contexts.
Precisely. He sees centralized control as a form of presumptuous, power-mad, globalist utopia.
Wow.
Where a small group of elites believe they have all the answers and try to impose their vision on everyone else.
Yeah.
He's wary of such utopian schemes, arguing that they often lead to unintended consequences and can actually hinder progress.
She seems to be cautioning against putting too much faith in any single ideology or system.
Yes, he's a strong advocate for critical thinking and challenging assumptions. He encourages people to question those in positions of authority and to think for themselves. He believes that progress comes from constantly questioning, experimenting, and learning from our mistakes.
That's a powerful message. It's a reminder that we shouldn't blindly accept what we're told, but rather engage in critical thinking and form our own opinions.
Exactly. And he also emphasizes the importance of listening to those who are often overlooked. Farmers, truckers, working class people, arguing that they have valuable insights and experiences that can inform our understanding of complex issues. He believes that top-down solutions often fail because they don't take into account the real-world experiences of those most affected by them.
It's a call for humility and empathy, recognizing that we don't have all the answers and that we need to be open to learning from others, especially those with different perspectives and backgrounds.
Absolutely. He also criticizes the tendency to demonize those who hold different views,
Right.
arguing that it stifles debate and prevents us from finding common ground. He believes that constructive dialogue, even with those we disagree with, is essential for finding solutions to complex challenges.
It's a reminder that we live in a world of diverse perspectives and that we need to be able to engage in civil discourse, even when we disagree.
Right. He also cautions against sacrificing economic security and opportunity in the pursuit of utopian ideals.
Okay.
He believes that a strong economy is essential for individual well-being and social progress, and that we should be wary of policies that undermine economic growth.
So he's advocating for a balanced approach that takes into account both economic and social considerations.
Yes, he believes that we need to find solutions that work for everyone, not just for a select few. He's a pragmatist at heart, always looking for practical ways to improve the human condition.
It's interesting how he ties his views on the free market and centralized control back to his broader vision for the future of humanity.
He sees individual freedom, innovation, and a decentralized approach as crucial for navigating the challenges and opportunities of the 21st century. He believes that by empowering individuals and fostering a culture of experimentation, we can unlock the potential of humanity and create a better future for everyone.
That's a pretty optimistic outlook. He seems to have a lot of faith in human ingenuity and our ability to solve problems.
He does, and he believes that technology can play a powerful role in that process. But he also recognizes the potential dangers of technology if it's not developed and used responsibly.
Right, like his concerns about artificial intelligence. He seems to be both excited and cautious about the potential of AI, urging us to proceed carefully and ensure that AI is aligned with human values.
He's not afraid to embrace the possibilities of new technologies, but he's also acutely aware of their potential downsides. He's a complex thinker, constantly wrestling with these big questions and challenging us to do the same.
Speaking of technology, let's circle back to his thoughts on virtual reality and the simulation hypothesis. Those are some pretty mind-blowing concepts he brought up.
Yes, they were. His suggestion that we might be living in a simulation is a powerful thought experiment that forces us to question our assumptions about reality.
It's a bit unsettling, to be honest.
Yeah.
If we are living in a simulation, what does that mean for our understanding of ourselves and the world around us? Does it make our experiences any less real or meaningful?
Those are profound questions that philosophers have been debating for centuries. But Musk's perspective is particularly interesting because he's coming at it from the standpoint of someone who's deeply involved in developing cutting-edge technologies.
Yeah.
He sees firsthand how quickly technology is advancing,
Right.
and how it's blurring the lines between the physical and digital worlds.
He even mentioned how VR is becoming so immersive that it can impact our physical movements in the real world.
Right. He talked about how spending time in virtual reality can make reality feel less real when you come back from it. It's a fascinating observation that speaks to the power of technology to alter our perceptions and experiences.
It makes you wonder if we'll reach a point where the distinction between the real and the virtual becomes meaningless.
That's a real possibility, especially if VR technology continues to evolve at its current pace. But even if we do reach that point, it doesn't necessarily mean that our experiences will be any less meaningful. It just means that we'll need to redefine what we consider real and find new ways to connect with each other and the world around us.
It's definitely a lot to think about. Musk's insights on virtual reality and the simulation hypothesis open up a whole new realm of possibilities and challenges.
He's definitely a thought leader in this space, pushing the boundaries of what we thought was possible and forcing us to confront some pretty profound questions about the nature of reality and our place in the universe.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground in this deep dive, from the free market to virtual reality and everything in between. But there's still one more area we need to explore: Musk's vision for revolutionizing space travel. Let's delve into that in our next segment.
All right, so let's talk about this idea about revolutionizing space travel. Musk is really passionate about this whole idea of making humanity a multi-planetary species. And he really sees reusable rockets as the key to achieving that goal.
Yeah, it's not just about getting to Mars. It's about establishing a sustainable presence there. And for that, you need a way to transport people and supplies back and forth affordably and reliably.
Exactly. Reusable rockets are kind of like the missing piece of the puzzle. Think about it this way. Imagine if airplanes were disposable.
Oh, wow.
You'd have to build a new one for every flight,
Right.
which would make air travel incredibly expensive and impractical.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. It would completely change the way we think about
Totally.
travel and exploration.
Exactly. And that's what Musk is trying to do with space travel. He wants to make it as routine and accessible as air travel is today. And reusable rockets are a huge step in that direction.
It's amazing to think about the possibilities. If we could reliably reuse rockets, it would open up so many doors for exploration, research, and even commercial ventures in space.
Absolutely. We could establish permanent bases on the moon, send missions to Mars and beyond, and maybe even start mining asteroids for resources. It would be a whole new era of space exploration and development.
It sounds like something out of a science fiction movie, but Musk seems to really believe it's achievable within our lifetime.
He does, and he's putting his money where his mouth is. SpaceX has already made significant progress in developing reusable rockets, and they're constantly pushing the boundaries of what's possible.
It's inspiring to see someone with such a bold vision and the determination to make it a reality. It makes you realize that the future is not set in stone.
Right.
That we have the power to shape it with our actions and our ideas.
He constantly challenges us to think bigger, to push the limits of what we believe is possible. And he backs up his words with action, investing his time and resources in making his vision a reality.
It's a powerful reminder that we don't have to settle for the status quo. We can dream big, set ambitious goals, and work towards creating the future we want to see.
Well said. And that's what makes this deep dive into Elon Musk's ideas so fascinating. He's not just talking about technology or business. He's talking about the future of humanity and our place in the cosmos.
He's pushing us to consider what kind of future we want to create and what role we want to play in shaping it.
Absolutely.
And he's reminding us that we have the power to make a difference.
Yes, yeah.
To create a future that's more sustainable, more prosperous, and more fulfilling for all of humanity.
It's a message of hope and inspiration, and it's one that I think we can all take to heart.
Definitely. Well, that brings us to the end of another deep dive.
I enjoyed this one.
As always, we encourage you to delve deeper into these ideas, form your own opinions, and engage in meaningful conversations about the future. Until next time, keep exploring, keep questioning, and keep diving deep.